All right, what is up, America, world, um, greater Chicagoland area? I don't know, whoever's watching this. What's up? It's Monday, which means there's a whole week in the books for Le Prep. And so let's get into it right away. And apparently, since I'm in love with tabular representations of data, I have a nice little table here that I'll throw up in just a second, um, tracking what I'm about to explain to you so you could visually see what I'm talking about here. And this is really the beauty of data collection, in my opinion, because while it was a successful week, like I said, there is a lot that I could potentially change to start fine tuning this. Let me just get right into it. So, as you can see on this table here, all the way to the left is going to be my scale weight, which isn't the end all be all. But so that between the 28th and the 5th actually dropped over 5 pounds. So 5.2 pounds based on scale weight. Is it the most accurate scale in the world? I'm not exactly sure. It's a digital scale, and the test retest is always exactly the same. So I'm going to trust it, and as long as I use that one method, it's going to be within methods able to detect a trend, which is exactly the same thing as I'm doing for my body fat measurements, but I'll explain that in a second. So that I was expecting it based on the start of this week. I set my deficit at 80% of my maintenance energy intake, or whatever that was predicted to be, at that current weight on the time of the 28th at 186.8 pounds. You throw it into the calculator, and it spits out what your projected maintenance energy intake is based on a bunch of factors like your activity level, the amount of times you train, the composition of your diet, yada yada yada. So based on that number, I came to about um, with an 80% deficit, or not 80%, 20% deficit. Wow, 80% would have sucked, but I wasn't far off this week actually. um, a roughly equivalent to 2,300 calories on training days, and at that last day, so you'll see calories. That's the one, two, three, four, fifth row where it starts with 2272 and goes down there. Those are the calorie intakes per day that I was taking in, and so that averaged out. You see on the right hand side, the training days averaged out to 2,229. God, wow, I can't read or do math. 2,291 calories per training day. And that's what I thought would be a 20% deficit. And a 20% deficit in the literature, it shows that that's generally around the mark where you're going to be losing under 1% of body weight per week. But as I mentioned in the last video, generally a slower rate for more advanced trainees and athletes is desirable because you're putting your lean muscle at risk if you decide to crash diet or lose, quote unquote, crash diet or lose weight at a higher rate. So my goal, as you see there, the negative 1.3, that was my goal. I wanted to start that week at 186.8, which I did, and then end the week at 185.5. Now, if you look to the left, you'll see what I actually ended the week on, which was 181.6. So I lost over 5 pounds in a week for a change of, you see 97.2% there. So that's actually a change of 2.8% in body weight, which has its pros and cons. So, and I've been trying all week long to understand these results. Let me just get them more out in front of you so I can get this table off the screen because the yellow is probably hurting your eyes. So my body fat percentage has gone down a full 2.5%, according to, I have this handheld measurement device called a Sculpt Chisel, and again, you get slightly differing results the more you retest it. So I decided to test it about 5 times every time and take the average for a representation. And again, it won't be exactly accurate. It's just going to show a trend like it is here. So you can roughly calculate that starting the week, um, I had a lean body mass of 77.1%, and that increased to nearly 80% at the end of the week. So even in that drastic deficit that I ended up being in, I ran it through another calculator, and it showed that based on the inputs, I was operating at not a 20% deficit, but a 63% deficit. So that is a large difference there. But even in that drastic of a deficit, I was able to gain zero point 0.6 pounds of muscle, which is not drastic by any means, but it goes to show that I'm still, I guess, within the realm of a feasible deficit. I think if I were to exclude any more calories out, then you would start seeing that muscle mass decrease, um, and then strength start to trend downwards during sessions, which I haven't seen either. So I think I'm right at the fringe. Um, whatever calculation error that happened, I'm right at the fringe of still having an effective diet, which I'll take. And so, also that last number on the table, that's your waist, not yours, mine, my waist measurement. So I was able to knock off nearly an inch on that over the course of the week as well. So let me get that off your screen. Um, I'm sure that yellow and green collage kind of hurt your eyes, but I wanted to illustrate a point there, that even with calculators and whatnot, it is vital to put your plan on paper, execute the plan, and then assess your returns. And here, um, even though I did exceed my weight loss rate, um, I was able, like I said, to gain lean mass at the same time while losing fat mass. I lost 5.8 pounds of fat, or yeah, you could say fat mass, but I'm sure a lot of that is still water, or some of it at least is still water. So I lost 5.8 pounds of not muscle and gained zero point 0.6 pounds of lean mass, which I guess could be organ tissue or bone matter or whatever. But I'm guessing since I'm training this much, it's probably lean mass. So, what could cause this? Um, I'm underestimating my activity level per day, which I think I'm doing. I set it at sedentary, and I'm actually moving around a lot more than I projected. Especially during the holiday season, I'm out shopping for presents, for groceries, whatnot, cooking, doing laundry a lot. Just moving around has proven to be more than sedentary for me. So I'm gonna bump that for next week. Muscle memory, an interesting concept. It's kind of like riding the bike after you take a break. Um, there's this really interesting principle called myonuclear addition, which is kind of beyond the scope of this entire post, but I'll get into it a little bit. When you train or do anything routinely, you add nuclei to specific, like for instance, something like shooting a basketball, or even like especially weight training. In the skeletal muscle, you're going to add nuclei um, in order to create a larger potential to adapt to that specific routine. So when you do that, for me, like what I was able to do over the summer was train pretty consistently, and then I took that month off, and so I experienced that little decrement in performance, but those nuclei don't ever go away. So I was probably able to recapture a higher, or return to the baseline level of strength quicker than you would assume to originally get there, because I still have that potential like locked in to my musculature. So that could explain why I'm still gaining a little bit of strength and muscle, excuse me, on such a drastic deficit. Again, water weight, like I said, that's probably still fluctuating a little bit. And like I mentioned, with the error, I'm taking into account the error in the chisel measurement. So I'm sure that is not dead on, but I'm not exactly trying to fork over $800 for a series of DEXA scans yet. So another thing that was in there on the graph if you want to rewind and check it out, I came into Sunday 185 pounds, right? So I was even exceeding my goal at that point, and then I had my protein sparing modified fast. And what that is uh, kind of what it sounds like. You have protein and not much else across the day, and that's going to spare muscle mass while allowing you to create a bigger deficit there because I'm not training that day. That is my only scheduled off day is Sunday. Um, so there's no stimulus really for my body to try and grow um, because I haven't trained that day. So why not create a bigger deficit there so you could shuffle a little more calories to training days throughout the week where they could be put to good use. So it might sound a little drastic, but it was very simple. It actually was kind of a relief to kind of not have to think about food for an entire day. I had 3 protein shakes, and it was easy. I went to 2 functions where there was a ton of food. I went to a family Christmas party. Always good to see them. Just had a really good time with the company, and there was the buffet and whatever pizza, and you just don't have to take any of it. And then I went to dinner with some college friends, which was really good to see them. And again, same thing. You don't like the social aspect of it's still there. You just don't have to create it around food. So hit my time with the protein shakes, and that drop was 3.4 pounds. So 3.4 of the 5.2 pounds I lost came on that last day. So what does that tell me? That day is probably where I'm going to incur the majority of weight loss via the deficit. So I think that will allow me, actually I know that will allow me to increase my calorie level and really focus on trying to maximize performance Monday through Saturday and lean on that protein sparing modified fast on Sunday to kind of knock it down and hit that weight loss rate of where it needs. Because theoretically, I suppose this week, if I lost that much weight on that one day, theoretically through the training week, I could gain weight and then, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't project exactly like this, but gain a little bit of weight throughout the week, and hopefully a good chunk of that is muscle mass because you'd be gaining at a pretty slow rate, and then boom, use Sunday to take off that chunk of water weight or fat weight. It's kind of the reverse. If you ever have run into like refeed type diets where they're like, oh, just diet throughout the week and then eat a ton of shit on Saturday because you were so good throughout it's exactly the inverse of that, which I think is much more practical. Um, I'm like not dieting. I'm even probably in maybe a very mild surplus or at least near maintenance through the training week to kind of aid performance. And this will be the week ahead, not last week, because these are lessons you learn, which is great. But so in the week ahead, I'll probably be closer to maintenance throughout the training week, and then boom, on Sunday is where it'll take me down to that desired weight loss rate. So um, that protein sparing modified fast was easier than I thought it would be, and there's ways to tinker with that too, but I don't see that coming. So what does this mean in terms of diet changes coming up this week for me? I already kind of alluded to it. I'm going to be adding calories. It's I think 318 a day, and that's mostly going to come in the form of carbohydrate. Because I was still at a pretty high fat intake as is. I'm going to be adding a meal to make this simpler. So previously I was eating at 11, 4, and 9, with the 9 o'clock meal being the one post training pre bed. Which will be the same thing, except I'm adding a meal on the front end. So I'm eating roughly every 4 hours, which I discussed in another video, I believe, one of the first two, to kind of be or maybe it was an article, I don't know. Don't quote me on this. But you can quote me on what I'm about to say. There's a theory of the refractory effect of protein synthesis, and it goes along with the leucine threshold. And so it shows that if you ingest a meal with enough protein and leucine to start the process of muscle protein synthesis in response to food, muscle protein synthesis being the construction of lean mass, which isn't huge based on just food. You need a stimulus, which is where training comes in, but you can increase your rate of MPS in response to a meal. And it's been shown that when you do initially ingest the meal, amino acids, insulin, and muscle protein synthesis all rise. And then even when amino acids stay high in the blood, your protein synthesis rates will go back down to baseline. So you could sit there with like an IV of amino acids in your veins, and you'll have that initial rise in synthesis, but it's not like you're just going to continue to get bigger forever and ever and ever. We can only wish. So to take advantage of that is to kind of space your meals far enough apart so that you don't have that wasted effect of protein, because if you're to eat too soon, again, you'll just continue to keep your amino acids elevated without having an impact on protein synthesis. And it's been shown that the next meal should be timed roughly 3.5 to 5-ish hours after the original in order to kind of have that washout period and then have protein synthesis respond accordingly again. So what I'm doing is spacing my meals 4 hours apart to kind of abide by that. And I'm going to be changing the composition of my meals a little bit. They were all mixed meals this previous week, especially my final meal, and I was adding calories kind of indiscriminately to that meal because I thought, more calories generally would be better in this anabolic window period or period of elevated protein synthesis where I could put these calories to good use. So that, while it did have a good chunk of my carbs, it also had a pretty high amount of fat. So based on meal composition, that was actually a higher fat meal than it was carbs. And I've been looking through a lot of research, and in the Beijing Bodybuilding unit from last year, just rereading some of that stuff on sleep quality and how diet can impact that. And there's some good literature that shows a higher fat diet compared to a higher carb diet could be a detriment to sleep quality and like wake episodes and sleep latency. So generally, it's been shown that a higher fat diet or even some sort of ketogenic diet, which I'm not on, could increase the time it takes you to fall asleep, cause you to wake up more frequently, and reduces like sleep quality in terms of sleep cycles. And there's been some acute studies that show if the composition is mostly carbohydrate in that last meal, or even high carb and high protein, that sleep onset is quicker compared to just a general mixed meal. I'll try to link some of these abstracts in the bio. Link in the bio, bro. But so you could dig into that a little bit deeper. But I'm going to be trying that out. So my pre-bed meal is going to be just a ton of like a cup of white rice, some chicken, and a couple bananas. Just kind of get that carb and protein allotment in bulk post-training, and to kind of leave the fats to earlier in the day, because timing when it comes to fat, as long as it's not interfering with sleep quality, is kind of less relevant than the other two macronutrients. So to recap that, basically my post-workout meal is going to be carbs, protein, and not much else, which is fine because that means throughout the day it'll just be fat and protein dominant, and lipid metabolism is higher during the daytime hours anyway. So I'm going to be putting together an article to kind of recap that. I think after the next 2 weeks, not this week coming up, because there's actually a lot going on for me this week, which probably could lead to another week of me exceeding the weight loss rate again. I have, I think, 3 days where I won't be able to train at my regular time, and 3 nights, those same days where 3 nights I'll have stuff going on. So I'm basically just trading one of the meals. I'm moving my post-workout meal, pairing it with training, moving both of those up, and taking one of the meals from earlier in the day and replacing that with a protein shake. So all told, throughout the week, I'll be missing out on roughly 1,000 calories, which I'm gonna try and account for. And let's be real, at some of these things, I'll probably have a drink or two, or five. So that's roughly. I take my whiskey neat or on the rocks like a gentleman, so that's probably 100 calories a pop. So as long as I have less than 10 drinks this week, I'll be good. I'll be in the ballpark. Um, and it's going to be interesting to see how changing the training time will affect my performance, but that remains to be seen. I think the week following that is going to be a week very similar to what I just experienced, in that I'll have a pretty open schedule and I'll be able to nail everything and have a better representation of how having carbs at night will impact my sleep. Um, Having said that, I'm going to try and implement those changes I did mention, the 4 meals and having carbs closer to bedtime when it is possible, um, right away. So that'll take effect starting today. About to go shopping after I post this. So just to quickly wrap up, training going really well. Like I said, strength is increasing. I have a spreadsheet, and when there's green on one of the on the first set, if I exceed the total from last week in terms of reps with a given weight, it's a green light, go, and it's lit up like a Christmas tree right now. So I think I'm getting back, like I said, with muscle memory, getting back to that original strength level. I'm pretty much back in everything but the deadlift, because I'm not really trying to force that just yet. But yeah, I'm back strength-wise to where I was, maybe even a little bit above. And I'm sure that will improve this week with more calories. Saturday was a little funky. I got a little ahead of myself with the volume for my chest, so benching that day was iffy. But I don't foresee that happening again. I'll be adding 1 set per primary lower body movement. Like last week, I don't think I mentioned this, but I added 1 set compared to the first 3 days of training. Then the next block of training, I added 1 set to primary upper body lifts, and now the next week I'm adding 1 set to primary lower body lifts, and then we'll go into secondaries in the following week. So I'm taking my squat and deadlift. I'm doing those twice a week, but I'll take that from 3 sets a pop to 4, which very doable. I'm still in a deficit. You're going to want to keep your volume lower than if you were in a surplus anyway. So that's where that all is. That's my week in a nutshell, which is, like I said, the beauty of this whole thing. If you keep the data, it will reward you, because this is showing me the errors in my ways, and this is all stuff that's within my control. I can go back and I could adjust factors, adjust inputs, and get the calories and the energy and the macronutrients and the training and the meal timing, everything. I can get that to what favors me the most. And it's all about making sound decisions, and you can make sound decisions based on evidence, and this is evidence. And this is exactly what I would do if I was coaching you. We'd be having a conversation, a video conversation like this every week, and we'd have a spreadsheet, and you'd be blinded by the bright yellow and neon green every week, but it would be for the greater good, because it would be producing a better you, just like it's producing a better me. And I'm going to keep it rolling. This is still very, very preliminary. And based on this rate, I definitely don't expect to lose 2.5% body fat every week. That would be insane. This is going to definitely peter off. But it just goes to show, hopefully, maybe next week I'm below 20. And then hopefully by New Year's I'm below 19. But that goes to show that my expectations are how long this is really going to take, and to where I need to get to start going in the other direction and gaining mass. Like I said, it's going to be roughly 10%. So if I'm knocking off maybe 1% or 2 a month, that's anywhere from 5 to 10 months. So this is a commitment. Just phase 1. That's just the beginning. So come April or May, hopefully I'm in that realm, but we'll see. Still a long way to go. Still enjoying the process here while it's still here. Signed up for another certification through NASM, which is accredited. It'll probably get me in a gym sometime shortly. Hopefully, getting that certification in January, because the Beijing bodybuilding certification isn't accredited, which I digress. And some new content, like I said, that meal composition in terms of sleep quality. I should have that come in within the next week or two. Might have another article or two to pop up there. And the coaching offer still stands. I'm still trying to get that going. Still would love to help you like I'm helping myself. 50% off for that first month, so $75. Gets you in the door, gets you a consultation, gets you a template. Money back guarantee if you're not pleased with your results. I'm just trying to get experience here, and based on, like I said, based on that market research, $75 is very financially responsible. So, yeah, holler if you got questions, comments, queries, concerns. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at tailor-madefitness.com or on Facebook on the Tailor Made Fitness page, or just slide in the DMs. I'm always here. All right, till next week.